Somebody tell Chris what we're doing. Okay. Yes. Good evening. Let's stand together as we sing. You know, if we were in a boat right now, it'd be like this. We're going across the water. I just had to say that. I'm sorry. Let's sing together. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaken. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense, so I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I build my life on Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Oh, rain came, wind blew, but my house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Oh, rain came, wind blew, but my house was built on you. And I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. And I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause I'm standing strong on you. I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause my house is built on you. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaken. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. No, He won't. Amen. Thank you for singing. You may be seated.
pass those around your side. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, good evening. We are looking at essential purposes of the church, just kind of sort through the issue. Why does the church exist? What are we supposed to accomplish? How does all that look like? And last week we looked at the first one there, which is worship, not necessarily in any order, but building on the Great Commission and also the Great Commandment. The Great Commission, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind. And the second part, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, which is essentially ministry. It's loving people by doing things for them. How do we show love for people? Well, we do things for them. We treat them well. And so for many Christians, ministry is one of the things that we just never seem to get around to. It's kind of, yeah, I should do that. I should help this person. I should do something. I just don't ever seem to get to it. But ministry is a great way to show love for God and love for people. Obviously, you show love for people. It's the people you're helping, you're serving, you're ministering to in some way. But how do you show that you love God? Well, he says in his word, he doesn't need anything. That even when we bring gifts, it's not because he needs it. When we receive an offering, it's not, somehow God was short on money this month. He has everything, but we give in his name for people. And that's whether you're giving offerings or anything like that, or whether you're doing ministry, we give to people, we serve people in his name. And it shows not only love for them, but love for God. I don't know who it was that said this, but I liked it. What you are is God's gift to you. What you do with yourself is your gift to God. And thinking along that line, it kind of leads us to an obvious question. So how does one know what to do? Whatever I do with myself is my gift back to God, but how do I know what to do with myself? An awful lot of believers are really confused because they just, I've been looking for years trying to figure out where I fit and what I should do, and, there's no, you don't usually get a little thing in the mail that says, from God, you are supposed to do this, and so we wonder, and often people just kind of assume I'm not really good or gifted at anything, and so I'll just kind of sit on the side and cheer for the people who do. We want to look, and there's a lot of different ways at sorting through this, and this is one. It's one I think is pretty easy to work with, and gives us an honest understanding of how to find out what we should be doing in ministry. And so I'm going to go through that with you. And then I picked 3 of you. I picked you during the week, and God saw fit to make you be here, so that's cool. That we're going to kind of analyze together. And I already did it, but I want to see if you guys agree with me. So we'll see where that goes. But first of all, and again, I'm not sure if this is in order, so don't think first of importance, but number one issue on your outline is spiritual gifts. Answers the question, how should you serve? In 1 Peter 4:10, it says, as each one has received a special gift, employ it in serving one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. God is saying, hey, every one of you believers, you have received a special gift. And it's not you open it and, oh, cool, I got $1,000. No, it's a gift that equips you in some special way to serve the body of Christ. And he says, employ it in serving one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. In 1 Corinthians 12:7, but to each one is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. So we received spiritual gift from the Holy Spirit, and it's for the common good. However he equipped me and blessed me, it's for all of you. However he equipped Ian, it's for all of us. It's for the believers. It's not just for, well, this is just for me, or, you know, this is me and my 5 best friends. It's for all of us together. What spiritual gifts can you think of that are mentioned in the Bible? And I'll start by saying most Bible scholars agree that there is no specific number of spiritual gifts, because there's about 3 different lists in the Bible, and all of them are somewhat different. And so it's kind of, we know these would count because they're mentioned in the Bible, but there could certainly be others. What ones do you think of?
Helps.
Okay, helps, or a serving gift?
Teaching.
Teaching, absolutely.
Administration.
Administration or leading, good.
Encouragement.
Encouragement. Okay. One pretty similar to that, I'm not sure if it would overlap and be the same. I can't think if encouragement is mentioned in any of those.
Helps. It says exhort one another, encourage one another. First.
Yeah, those would be one another responsibilities, but I'm not sure they're listed as spiritual gifts. But again, I'll say, I can't say, unless you say something really weird, I can't say, no, that isn't one, because I don't really know, because I don't think we have a full list anywhere. And so, certainly could be valid.
Giving.
Giving is listed.
Discernment.
Knowledge is listed, which would be pretty close in there.
Hospitality.
I think it's similar to what Ian said. I don't think it's listed anywhere, but it would be one where a lot of people would say, I think maybe it is one, but Gabby?
How about evangelist?
What was the question, Pastor? I'm sorry.
What spiritual gifts do you know that are mentioned in the Bible?
Oh,
And Gabby said, how about evangelism? And that one is tricky too.
prophecy.
Because it's not listed as a spiritual gift, but evangelist is listed as a gift to the church. And so a lot of Bible scholars, theologians would say, well, if there is a gift of an evangelist, is he gifted with the gift of evangelism? And it's like hard to argue against it. It would be inference. Seems like it might be that way.
What about prophecy?
Prophecy would be one that we believe has passed. Others that we've not mentioned, showing mercy, faith, and at least that was what I had in my list. But I'd like you to just right now be kind of thinking of maybe 2 of those that you think might fit you. It doesn't mean you're going to get assigned some heavy responsibility that plugs those in, but just kind of be thinking, who am I in regards to those? The second area that we're going to look at is heart, And heart has to do with your passion, what do you really love? And it answers the question, where should you serve? In Deuteronomy 11:13 and 1 Samuel 12:20, it says that we are to serve the Lord with all our hearts. So somehow in serving the Lord, our heart enters into it, and we wonder exactly what that looks like. Your heart refers to your hopes and desires, your interests and affections, your ambitions, your dreams, even along the line of what you consider valuable and important. Your heart determines why you think the things you think, why you say the things you say, and why you do the things you do. In Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinks within his heart, so is he. So it's like the heart is, if I could read your heart, I would know you. If you could read my heart, you would know me, the real me. Proverbs 4:23, watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. And in that case, it's like a picture. Your heart is like a reservoir, a body of water, and all the springs that flow out of this body of water are the issues of life. I think it's the King James that uses the word issues of life. Is that true, Gene? Or you're not turned there? Proverbs 4:23. But I think it King James puts it issues of life. But that's the idea that your heart is the reservoir of values, affections, things like that. And all of the issues of life are going to flow out of that body, which is your heart. When I thought of passions in relation to ministry, and the question, where should you serve? I thought of the obvious one, Johnny and Friends. We just had 18 people go there. And it's like, okay, there is a sense of passion, partly for the ministry Johnny and Friends, but partly a developing love and concern among our church family for handicapped people. And so, I mean, this year, I think it's the first year that I can remember that Kelly didn't give a big plea. Am I wrong? Did she do one this year? I don't think she did, and actually we had the most yet, so I don't know if it's just carried over from last year or what, but what other ministries might people enter because of where their heart is at? Sure, Gideon, explain what you mean. I think you're right, Gene, but...
Well, passing out Bibles to people, planting seeds.
Okay. It's a part of evangelism, giving Bibles to people. It's like, I want to see God's word get into the hands of people. And so you might work with Gideon's ministry. What else do you think of? Okay, homeless people. Just a special care for people who maybe were homeless at one time in their life. And it's like, I want to reach out to those people. Okay, Heart for Missions. There's a lot of ways that you can serve. You might become a missionary. You might regularly write missionaries. You might prepare materials, like from a sewing group, but there's a lot of things you could do. What else? Okay, Samaritan's Purse. What might lean a person in that direction? Okay, helping people who have been through a crisis. And a lot of people have a heart for that. Maybe they've been through some horrible crisis, and there's a special sensitivity to people who are suffering and going through a time of loss. Eric?
I was just thinking of Open Arms Pregnancy Center.
Okay, that was one on my list. And who might have a heart for that? I mean, anybody could. But especially if you're a woman who, I went through a period and I either struggled about having an abortion or I even had an abortion. And I realize how valuable a ministry like that could be.
I think being like a deacon, like, or a trustee, like you're serving the church, and the deacon's like serving, helping the pastor and caring for the people in the church.
Okay.
Isn't that what the word means, deacon?
Yeah, it's a server,
Yeah.
servant.
So like, yeah.
What kind of person might say Scioto Hills Camp?
Loves kids. Parent.
That too. Dan, congratulations. You got a lot of laughs out of that one. And it wasn't even a play on words.
And I didn't even say anything.
It was Eric.
Oh, I thought that was Dan.
It was Eric.
I gave Dan all the credit for
Since
that.
everybody laughed, it was bad. They look this way.
Someone who was saved in a camp ministry.
Yeah.
Again, great. Maybe a camp ministry changed your life. And it's like, yeah, I have a special heart for what Christian camps are doing. What about...
Chrissy sends flowers to people who lost loved ones, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Through the church.
Okay.
That's a gift.
Sensitivity to people who are hurting in a time of loss. You probably get the idea. There are a lot of things kind of affect our heart. It could be past experiences. It could be just, hey, I was born and wired that way. We'll discuss that a little bit more later. But number 3 is abilities. It's what should you do? We looked at how should you serve, where should you serve, and now what should you actually do? Would you turn to Exodus 32? I'm sorry, Exodus 31. Bible quiz time. Does anybody know what Bezalel did? He's not one of the big names in the Bible. Okay, I wondered if Barry would know. Bezalel was involved in building. He was a craftsman, kind of a unique craftsman. We're in Exodus 31, verses 2 to 6. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, See, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. I have filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom, in understanding, in knowledge, and in all kinds of craftsmanship, to make artistic designs for work in gold and silver and in bronze, and in the cutting of stones for settings, and in the carving of wood, that he may work in all kinds of craftsmanship. And behold, I myself have appointed with him Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, and in the hearts of all who are skillful I have put skill, that they may make all that I have commanded you. So it's an interesting couple of verses that where there is going to be a need or a demand for somebody with great craftsman skills, God raises up craftsmen. And he says, I specially gifted those people so they can rise up and they can do this work that needs to be accomplished. I thought it's fascinating. It ties in with the idea of abilities in, I think it's 1 Corinthians 10:31. I'm not positive on that. Whether then you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Your ability, whatever your ability is, do it to God's glory and ultimately for his glory. And so what are some abilities that can be used for the glory of God?
Music.
In ministry to people? Certainly music.
Empathetic listener.
Okay, a good listener. We're probably talking counselor. A counselor has to be a good listener before he can start counseling and saying, here's what's going on as I see it. Courtney?
I think of like Mary and Gabby, like Gabby like translates and Mary the sign language, but it's with different types of skills with communication.
Okay, sure.
Communication.
Communication skills, ability to connect with some people with some sort of a handicap. to make that work. What else? Eric?
I don't think there's any skill that you couldn't use for ministry.
What if, here, I'll try to stump the stars, but I know what you're going to say already. Suppose I'm a recent convert and I've worked 30 years as a bartender. Sure, serve in the kitchen. It's like you're not going to be fixing alcohol and drinks, but you understand something about serving people and preparing orders.
You might be an empathetic listener too.
There you go.
Possibly. Okay, interesting. I bet you didn't know that was coming, did you?
I did not. Got it.
Painters. Can you paint for the glory of God? Sure you can. Tyler, have you ever done that? Counselors, can you be a soldier for the glory of God?
Yeah.
Sure. A teacher? Could you be an accountant for the glory of God? Or a treasurer? Sure. A builder? Yeah, I mean, Eric kind of summed it up as there's, about the time we say there's nothing you can't do for the glory of God, somebody's going to say, oh, how about me? Well, all right, you got me. But for the most part, whatever you do, you can do it for the glory of God. Go to number 4. And this one is a little tricky, but it's personality. Sometimes people have a certain personality and they feel like, well, I really can't be used because I'm a very introverted person. And I'm just so shy. I just don't relate to people well, and I get nervous. Psalm 139, verse 14. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Is that everybody? Yes. Yeah, everybody. It doesn't matter. God uses introverts and extroverts, thinkers as well as feelers, weepers as well as laughers, task-oriented people as well as people-oriented individuals. There's a place for everybody. But it's important you find your role. Jeremiah was, one of his nicknames is the weeping prophet. He was great for a prophet of the judgment of God, but you probably wouldn't want him as a church greeter. There it's like, yeah, you want somebody with a smile on their face and, hey, good morning, and not somebody that sees you and starts weeping or something. All different personalities that we have, and they may lean towards different ministries, but there isn't any personality that's like, yep, that one is useless. God would never use that or could never use that. And I find it interesting in the Bible, you have a wide variety. Again, Jeremiah, very sensitive. David was super sensitive. There's a lot of times he talks about weeping and huge depth of emotion from David. There's people who were extremely patient. There were people who were inclined toward impatience. You had somebody like Peter who was rather impulsive and very outspoken and quick to say what he thinks. And then there's others who you kind of have to dig it out of them to find out what they think. Let's look at the last one here for a moment, which is experiences. And here it's intentional experiences as well as unintentional experiences. For instance, vocational experiences. They have a lot to do with how you can minister. Why don't you name 3 vocations that are valuable for somebody who's going to minister to people? Nurse, teacher, social worker. A social worker, it's sensitivity to people's needs. Teacher, nurse, yeah, they're all people related fields. along with experiences, family experiences. If you're an abuse victim or you're adopted, would that tend to equip you in a special way for any particular kinds of ministries?
Yeah.
Which ones?
Open arm pregnancy center for one, if you're adopted.
Adoption.
Okay.
clinics.
You'd be able to empathize and sympathize with others who have gone through abuse and the pain that is there. Maybe adoption situation. It's like, okay, I have a special concern for adopted people because I've been there. I understand that. What about a MK? Anybody know what an MK is? Yeah, missionary kid. Is there some special way that might equip you for ministry to people? Other missionary kids, yeah. Anything else?
You might be bilingual so that you could also.
Good chance you're bilingual. I remember Tom Zentz when we supported them as missionaries to Japan, and their son, it wasn't a ministry per se, but they came here in Columbus area, and he got a job working for Honda, and he was very valuable because he could communicate with people in Japan. And it's like, I speak Japanese pretty fluently, and it's like, whoa, where do you go to find somebody who speaks Japanese fluently? And it's like, well, I grew up in Japan. And it's like, wow, you're valuable. Valuable in relationships, valuable in vocation, but valuable in ministry. A missionary kid is especially gifted in understanding travel, understanding people from different cultures, just all kinds of different benefits. And that, I mean, they didn't necessarily choose. It's just like, that's just kind of what happened to me. When I was old enough to think, I realized, wow, all my cousins live in America and I'm in Japan or wherever it is. Why is that? Well, we're something called missionaries. And gradually they understand more and more, and there's times where they struggle and say, that stinks, I want to live in America, and other times it's like, okay, there's a lot of benefits to being multicultural in your background in growing up years. A third one is educational experiences. This has to do with your training, your schooling. Primarily, we're talking college and post-college. If you have special training in some areas, it will equip you. For instance, if we had a medical team, it would be pretty valuable to have somebody who's a nurse or a doctor. And it's like special training. We don't really want to go to a third world country and say, hey, we're offering medical services to everybody. And it's like, yeah, we don't really know much, but we raised kids. And it's like, we're not horribly well equipped. And it'd be like, sure wish we had somebody on our team that had some formal training, so we could give guidance to our team. A fourth one is ministry experiences. What have you done in the past that you have experience in? Teaching, evangelism, youth worker, worship leader, whatever it is, that helps to determine opportunities and possible direction for where you'll go in the future. Because it's great to have somebody who's, hey, I've been there, I've done that. And actually I enjoyed it and thought it was a great ministry. A fifth one here, and it's the last one I'll mention, is painful experiences. And in 2 Corinthians 1:4, it says, the God of all comfort who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we will be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. It's kind of a wordy verse, but basically it says that God is the great comforter, and many times he allows us to have an affliction so he can comfort us, so we can go out and comfort other people. That experience of pain and being comforted by him equips us for ministry to people. And I don't know who said this, but I latched onto it. It said, God never wastes a hurt. Nobody goes away to college to get hurt. It'd be like, yeah, we have we don't care what your major it is, we guarantee that you're going to hurt and suffer this year. And it will change your life. And it's like, it sounds interesting, but I think I'm going to a different school. But yet, painful experiences are valuable. Can you come up with an example? Eric?
I know when my mom had breast cancer, she had kind of several bouts of it. And she hated it and she was afraid of it. But she found that after she'd been through it, she ended up talking to all kind of ladies that got diagnosed with breast cancer. She was able to talk with them and pray with them and give them some encouragement.
Yeah, huge bridge builder. Back in 92, I think it was, we had a real serious car accident, and a lot of people then heard our story and knew how long we were hospitalized and things. And we were shocked at all the doors that were being opened to somebody else that, you know, was still recovering from some accident, some injury. And it's like all of a sudden doors were opening. And what else do you think of?
Yeah, I had like an abusive dad, and kind of like a dad that wasn't really there for me. So I kind of care for people that don't have like a father figure, which is kind of like I care for my nieces because like they don't really have a parent figure in their life. So even though like I had a painful childhood, I can use that as a testimony.
Yeah, affected your ability to empathize with people who are going through something similar and sympathize and think, boy, I'd like to help that person. Good. Courtney?
Mine's kind of similar, but I was gonna say parental loss or spousal loss or sibling loss.
Okay. Yes, spousal loss would be huge. My brother's wife died from COVID three and a half years ago, and I would say, I mean, from what I can see, I don't know if you'd say he's ever going to get over it, but in many ways he's just now recovering. And we did the grief share ministry at our church for a while. He was in a grief share group. He's in a church in Greenville, South Carolina that has like 2,000 people. And so there's a lot of ministries targeting people like him. In fact, I talked to him this week, and he said their church joined another church that's even larger than theirs with very similar theology, and they started a singles group. And you have to be at least, it was either 45 or 47 years old to be in it. And some are never married, but some are divorced, some are widowed or widowers. And he's telling me, you know, we go on picnics, we go on hikes. Yesterday they had a pickleball outing. Just do a lot of things. And I said, it's just like a youth group, right? He said, yeah, but except, you know, we don't have to ask our parents if we can go. And our budget is way different.
There you go.
It's not like you're a kid and, hey, Mom, can I have $15 for, you know, the youth rally Saturday or something? They could actually plan a cruise or something and say, it's going to be $1,500 a person. And lo and behold, okay, we can do that. But it's a ministry to people in a kind of a special segment. Courtney?
I have another one. One of my donors said that he joined a group for addiction at his church. So,
Okay, for sure. If that was in your past, then, and you've recovered from that, there's memories, the ability to counsel with people, understand their failures, know a little bit more about the pathway to success. Melody?
Like somebody loses their home to either a tornado, hurricane, fire, I mean, any kind of
just disasters.
Okay, yeah. You have the idea, a lot of painful experiences open the door for ministry, and at the time you think, this is unredeemable, this is the worst thing, how could God ever use this for good? Obviously, classic example would be Johnny in her accident. I can't say positively, but I would dare to say, if she didn't get injured and become a quadriplegic, you would have never heard of Johnny Erickson Tithe. She would just be one more person out there who's living their life and doing what they do. And I mean, it's hard to say. If we ask for somebody to raise your hand, if you're willing to go through what she has in order to have the ministry that she has, I'm not sure that any of us would raise our hand, except for Brady.
I didn't mean that, but it was like the Apostle Paul said, he would like literally take away his salvation for everybody else.
Okay.
So it's kind
Yeah,
of
I think that's a valid illustration maybe, but I mean, before she was injured, if you asked her, would you be willing to go through this in order to have a richer ministry? I think she said, I'd be pretty happy with the ministry I've already got. I could live with that. I probably don't really need any major injuries or accidents. But when God sovereignly works in our lives, injuries, painful experiences are redeemable, and many times God uses it powerfully. Sometimes in ministry, you serve upward to those in authority. Sometimes you serve downward to those in need. You will be most effective when you use your spiritual gifts and natural abilities in the area of your heart's affections and in a way that best expresses your personality and is supported by your experiences. In Galatians 6:10, it says, "So then, while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, and especially those who are of the household of faith." What observations do you have out of that verse? And I'll read it once more because I know you weren't listening in light of the question. "So then, while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, and especially those who are of the household of faith."
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need to be bold, like, when we have the opportunity to witness or whatever ministry we want to do, like, let's take action towards it.
Okay, take initiative.
But like, you got something?
Go ahead, Eric.
I just say ministry starts with your church family.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, he says especially those who are of the household of faith. Sometimes we think, well, if it was an unsaved person, I'd probably do it for them, but Christians, they should be able to figure it out on their own or work it out by themselves. And God says, no, especially look for ways to do good to your brothers and sisters in Christ. Anybody else?
I was just saying, like, don't over Christians by our love, and like, if our church is a wreck and we're trying to tell people to like come to Jesus and we're not, loving at all, like people, like, I think love. Obviously, Jesus said, love your neighbor and love the Lord your God. So like, if we're not doing those things, then like, it's not really going to work. Evangelism can't really be used unless God just chooses to save them, regardless of how messed up we are.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. You have that little phrase, "so while we have opportunity." What does that mean? Because doesn't it seem like there will always be needy people?
Absolutely.
Did you ever find a shortage of needy people? Suppose you had an extra $1,000 and the council was, find somebody to help with that while there's still opportunity. And you'd say, really? I mean, am I ever going to run out of people who need money? So why does he have that little phrase, while we have opportunity? Eric?
There's no shortage of need, but there's shortage of me and you. Like, we
You
don't
don't know
have
when your
endless
last breath is.
opportunities to use the gifts that God has given us.
Okay, yeah, we don't know how long we're going to be here. We don't know how long it'll be before the Lord comes back. When you're in heaven, you're not going to be finding needy people there. And it's like, oh my goodness, a poor leper in heaven. What can we do for him? And it's like, you don't have that. And so whatever good deeds we're going to do, it's like the message is, you better do them now while you have opportunity. Jessica?
Could the opportunity be, because I have struggled with that before, feeling inadequate, because I see needs and then feel like I can't be involved in all of them. But if you really, I found that if I really pray about it, God will tell you the opportunities that you should be involved in.
Okay. Yeah, obviously you can't do
Once
everything.
He lays on your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think the Lord is drawing you to do something specific, or for a person or someone in your group, because He wants you to do it at that time. And a lot of times we say no to them. You know, if somebody needs grocery money, okay, they need it right now.
Mm-hmm.
He wants us to do it right now. Or if somebody needs help with their car, or fixing their house, or it needs done at a specific time, you're being given that opportunity, and you can either help or you can waste it.
Okay. Good. I mentioned that we're going to talk about a couple of us specifically. And out of those 5 areas, spiritual gifts, heart, abilities, personality, and experiences, a lot of times we don't know where to begin. And it's like, okay, I kind of understand those things, but how do I know where to begin? And I think if we look at least many of us, you'd realize that one of those 5 is dominant. And it kind of drives and coordinates the other factors. And so I want to trace through 3 from our church that I think one of those is dominant. And maybe they're going to say, you don't know me at all. But I mean, I don't think that will happen. And the first one is, because I know they can handle it, is Steve and Diane. And I was thinking about them, and I thought, you have to start with heart, because they both have a big-time love for music. I mean, you could go all over Guernsey County and say, hey, what do you know about Steve Box or Diane Box? And if music doesn't come up in the first 30 seconds, I'd be surprised. It might be band, it might be music, somehow it's music. And so, in figuring out how God is going to use them, if you start with heart, the love for music reveals abilities in music. I would assume when Steve and Diane were in grade school, in 3rd grade or 4th grade, they realized that, you probably had a music class in elementary school. And I did. I was really bad. And in fact, true confession, the worst grade I ever got on a report card was in music. It was a D-, which was like, we're only passing you out of mercy. And I didn't really deserve it, to be truthful.
That explains a lot.
I didn't really like the music class, and we had to sing songs, and I only knew church songs. And one of them was, Oh Eliza, Little Liza Jane. And I gathered a group around me and we sang that with a real hillbilly twang. And the music teacher thought that was the most disgusting thing in the world. And from that point on, she was opposed to me. But at any rate, putting the attention back on Steve and Diane for a minute. Start with heart, a love for music. It leads to some natural abilities for music. I'm sure when they're in grade school, when they're covering music, they're picking things up quickly and able to sing on, carry a tune and to identify notes. And when I was in music class, and they started doing all these things, treble clef and half clef and all that. I thought that is the weirdest stuff I've ever heard. And a whole note and a dotted half note, and quarter note and stuff. I was like, man, that is really far out there. I dare say Steve and Diane latched onto that, and it's like, yeah, that just resonates with me. Love for music and abilities in music led to music education and music experience. When they're growing up, grade school, high school, they've participated in band or in chorus or various ministry music opportunities and realize I love music and I'm good at it. In fact, I like it so much and I seem so wired that way, I think I'm going to go to college and study it further. And I'm going to be a band director or I'm going to be a music teacher. And so it led to education, and when you have the education, it leads to music experience. And so Steve's been a band director for longer than most of us have been alive. Some exaggeration. He's been a band director for a long, long time.
There you go.
And Diane's been a music teacher for a long, long time. As far as spiritual gifts, there isn't a spiritual gift of worship leader or piano player or something like that. Those aren't the nature of the spiritual gifts. But teaching and leading are spiritual gifts. And if Steve or Diane said, Pastor, I'm trying to figure out what my spiritual gift would be, I would question that's a good place to start is you seem to be drawn in a direction of teaching roles and leading roles. And I wonder if that wouldn't transfer into ministry. And lo and behold, I think it has. So is it any surprise that when you look at ministry for Steve and Diane, it's in the context of music? I've done several ministry trips with Steve and Diane and a bunch of other people. And even though we're planning what we're going to do, somehow when it all plays out, Steve and Diane had a major ministry in music. Whether we're in Chile or whether we're in St. Vincent, I wasn't there. What's Jamaica's the one I was trying to think of. I mean, wherever you guys have gone, I know you went to St. Vincent, I wasn't there, but you had a music role. And it's like, wow, God just keeps somehow using us in music. Well, I think it's critical to put all those things together. They're very logical. And I do think it helps to start with something that appears to be dominant, which in their case, I think it's the heart level, which is a love for music. I assume maybe your parents are musical? Okay. Okay. Let's jump to somebody else and we'll...
Well, his mom and his sister played like in church, and she's like a Yvonne.
Okay.
Yvonne prayed us here. Did she tell you that?
She did not. But I'm not, I don't doubt it.
My parents met in their high school band.
Okay.
And we
They
met,
played in church, played in the church orchestra together.
and we met in a non-Christian college. I wanted to go to Christian college, and my grandma, who was very conservative and pastor's wife, came to me one day and she said, I really think you should go to Bowling Green. I'm like, what? Grandma, I mean, she would, She says, yeah, I think it's going to be better for your parents and you get a good education. And then, I don't know, maybe the Lord used her to, because I never would have met Steve.
Yeah. I hope you can just kind of in your mind trace through that process. And now we're going to jump to somebody else. And what I have in mind is Kevin. And you can disagree with me, and feel free if you do, but I think the defining role in Kevin's life is not heart, but experiences. And I would say it goes to youthful rebellion, a major accident, and injuries that led to his conversion. And if I want to define his life and figure out how is God going to use him, I think it's going to start there. Life experience. And from there, I consider the issue of heart. Where's his heart? And I can think of two things that drive Kevin. One is hunting, and the other is evangelism.
Yeah.
Does anybody disagree with that?
Nope.
Okay.
Agree with it.
So then I think, well, spiritual gift. What might it be? And somebody suggested, well, is evangelism a spiritual gift? And if it is, I think that's probably where he's at. I think he's wired that way. I would, if I had to venture a guess, I would say there is a spiritual gift to that end, and that's who he is. As far as abilities, I don't know Kevin super good, but I know two abilities: hunting and driving a truck.
There you go.
Personality, I don't think really has a factor, but if you put all those together, where is it going to lead in ministry if you're Kevin?
Truckers will get saved.
How about something like the John 3:16 Hunt Club? Something that he can even do while he's driving the truck and do share messages on over the internet, a daily thing that he shares, and trying to have a witness to other truck drivers, and use hunting as a means of not only fulfilling a passion, something that's part of his heart, but saying, is there some way that I can use this to glorify God? And I think that it's not a huge surprise that he ended up doing what he's doing and where he's at today. Does anybody want to add anything to that, or Brady?
Is discipleship a spiritual gift? Because like, I know you do a lot of Facebook videos, and that's part of that too.
I don't, it's not of the nature of what's listed in spiritual gifts. I would tend to say discipleship is teaching in
That's a good point.
a small group context. In other words, if your spiritual gift is teaching, there's a lot of ways that you can work with that. You could be somebody who, like a Josh McDowell, who teaches groups of thousands of people at a time in university settings. Or you could be somebody who teaches a small group, or in a discipleship role, even a one-on-one. And that will all depend on some other things like your personality, your ability, your education. If you're discipling and you've got a great degree of education in teaching and expressing biblical truth, you might end up teaching discipleship, doing discipleship
I got you.
at a very high level. For instance, evangelism. Kevin can do evangelism in the context he's in. If he wanted to replace Billy Graham, he would have to have some major steps in his life that say, okay, I'm gonna need to go to school, and I need to study the Bible more, and I need to study doctrine and theology, and I need to study public speaking, and there'd be a lot of things that it just depends how far you go with all those things and the direction you go. One more, and we're running out of time, and this one is Barry. Barry says, no, not me. With Barry, I started with abilities. And maybe I'm wrong, but I started with abilities, and I thought construction, mechanical, electrical. And experiences come out of that. Because what does Barry do? Barry fixes things. Barry's a fixer. You know, we have something break down at the church, and it's like, okay, you know, call Barry. It's like, this is a real tough one. And if it's something easy, there's a lot of us that can do it. Tougher things, Barry is a fixer. Barry, I don't want to go too far. Everybody's going to be calling you. Barry, I've got this problem here. And Pastor said you're a fixer. I'll just drop it there. Barry fixes things. As far as personality, I think it's critical as far as ministry role. I didn't mention it for the others, but for Barry, he's quiet, he's very tender-hearted, and he's a thinker. And I think all of those describe Barry. And when I think of heart for Barry, I think of somebody who cares for one who is hurting or who is in need in a special way. That just seems to grab Barry in a unique way. And when I thought about Barry in regard to spiritual gifts, the first one that came to my mind is showing mercy. And I thought of serving or helps ministry. So if you're counseling Barry, and he comes to you and says, I have no idea how God could use me, what would you suggest to him?
I would also add to Barry that he's a really good teacher.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He knows the Bible.
So, even though he doesn't think he's good at it, everybody here thinks he's great.
Barry's good at everything.
Barry's going to turn red in a moment. I actually thought of putting that down, but I knew Barry wasn't comfortable in that role.
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
so I
Barry.
didn't want to promote it. How would you counsel Barry to serve? Spiritual gifts, showing mercy, serving, helps, special abilities in construction, mechanical, electrical, his experience. He's a fixer. Even in his job for years and years, he worked for an electric company, and basically he made it work. His personality, he's a quiet person, he's tender-hearted, he's a thinker, has a special concern for people who are hurting or in need. Don?
If I was counseling Barry, I would say, you can say no once in a while.
He does say no once in a while. I've asked him to do a lot of things, and most things he says, yeah, but there's some things Barry says no to. And I think that's good. If you say yes to everything, you're probably doing too much.
Since I've known him, he's awful willing to help.
Yeah, he is. He is.
It's also care.
I was thinking of places like the pregnancy center. You can offer his services there.
Okay. Courtney?
I was thinking of like those people that build charity homes and stuff, like build the houses. Yeah, that, or like the people that want that.
Mm-hmm. Barry, how many times have you done a ministry with Samaritan's Purse?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. Probably like a dozen, but they were with not all Samaritans.
Okay, but other ministries similar to that?
Similar to that, yeah.
Okay. A Samaritan's Purse helps people like a hurricane goes through and people's houses are flooded and swamped, and it needs somebody who's willing to go through there and be a fixer.
Franklin Graham is leader.
Yeah, Franklin Graham.
Yeah, Eric?
Actually, I think sometimes when people have a gift that's so prominent, that becomes the definition for your church. When you said, how would somebody show ministry or show mercy, the first thing I thought of is anything Barry does.
Wow.
Like, Barry is the definition of mercy in the church family.
And humility.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, we better close before Barry gets embarrassed and walks out on us. I wanted to go through that process with you to help you to see that there is a logical way of just working through those to figure out kind of the direction for ministry that you ought to look into and say, is this how God would use me? He probably isn't going to And the reason, a key reason I didn't mention teaching for Barry is it's not part of his heart. The rest of it is. He loves studying and learning. He loves theology, but I don't think teaching is part of his heart. And he has to be coerced into it, and he's learned to say no to that. And the first time or two, he didn't know how to say no, and he did it, and then he said, this is not me. Even though, I mean, there's certain things you can do a good job in, and it doesn't mean that's your heart, your passion. There's other things, the things that if Barry has rescued you in a time of need in some way, and you realize he's extremely gracious in serving, and that tells you something about, that's part of his heart. Anyway, Barry.
He was an excellent teacher, though. I was in his class, and I wondered why he didn't teach anymore. Is that true what he's saying about you? You don't want to teach?
It was something that sat in the corner and turned him off of it. That's what I heard anyway.
It is really hard when you're teaching and people get as far away as they possibly can.
COVID.
There we go.
Yeah, thank you for being here tonight and your participation, and I hope it was helpful. And we're gonna close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we do thank you that you have worked in us in ways that we don't even always put together. But you've equipped us and trained us, and help us to be alert to how you desire to use us and how we can be a blessing to especially the body of Christ, but even beyond that, to everybody. And I pray that you would direct each of our hearts to have a true love for our neighbor, whoever that would be, and to be open and willing to serve that one and to show the love of Christ in that way.